Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
The streets of the international city have sung the sound of race cars since 1975, but for 33 drivers today, thoughts of entering victory lane and joining the likes of Unser Jr. and Andretti might just be a dream. Today we find out who can tame the streets of Long Beach in round 2 of the INDYCAR ButtKicker iRacing Pro Series. Welcome along to the iRacing Esports Network and INDYCAR's YouTube channel. 7 days ago, Eduardo Leo put the field on notice by showing everyone the Leo level on his way to victory at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And so, with the gauntlet laid down and to that end, now it's time to find out who can respond to that challenge with our first oval round in 7 days' time. Our junior Kangi Party, Kenneth Bueno, ready to rock you through all the action. And Kenneth, I'm so excited. How are you feeling after our opener 7 days ago?
I'm feeling good. I mean, after the Indianapolis Grand Prix race we had 7 days ago, we had a proper kickoff for this season, and to go to a street circuit right after and to have the several disciplines of racing in the first several rounds just to give the drivers that versatile test, and it means it's going to be awesome to see what Long Beach can provide for the drama, the point standings, and if it stands the same as last week.
And IndyCar is all about adaptability, right? Street circuits, road courses, and that's what our champions got to fight for. $20,000 goes the way of our champion in the battle for $50,000 in our total prize pool. Kenneth, but the prizes go all the way down to 15th position.
It's a lot of money that's going to be given out to these drivers. It's awesome no matter where you stand, even if you don't have the greatest of season. But we know that drivers want to be competitive on track. They want to go for the wins, the championship, and hence the $20,000 that awaits them if they can hoist the trophy at season's end. And this is only race 2. It's a relatively short championship, Arjuna, but Long Beach poised as the first street circuit race and the only street circuit race of the season. It means it's one of its kind on the schedule and one of its kind for the championship context as well.
And so, one thing that we discussed a little bit a week ago, the fan vote, the chance for you, the audience, to have your say about where we would go racing the penultimate round. It was between a couple of road courses, the Red Bull Ring and Monza, or what ended up being the fan vote. One of the oldest tracks in global motorsport, so much heritage at the Milwaukee Mile, and of course IndyCar came back here in 2024. Excited to go there for Kenneth. What will be, let's be honest, a season-defining race, penultimate round of the championship.
It will be, and you know what? IndyCar had 2 races there several months ago. We're only going to be racing once this time around, but it's still going to be a blast to drive for the drivers, and it'll be a blast for us to watch. I mean, you were talking to me off air last week about how exciting it would be to have half of the schedule be road courses, half of them be ovals, with Milwaukee now being the penultimate round of the season. It adds another layer of complexity for those who have to master a very tricky circuit. One that seems relatively simple on paper, but one that will test the strategy and will get drivers on their A game if they want that championship the round after.
But that is all to come. Round 9 is a long way away, so just keep in mind what we've got in store. There's a look at some of the drivers who are getting ready to go. Qualifying already in the books. They've got a chance to just quickly dial themselves in for some race preparation. Note, different setups at play. Some drivers in purpose-built rigs, some others in office chairs, and some even in virtual reality. The true depth and complexity of sim rigs on display for you in the wall of faces. But Kenneth, we're here at Long Beach. Talk us through the challenge at play for these drivers.
Well, when you look at it from a top-down perspective, Arjuna, it looks relatively simple. But this, other than the Indianapolis 500, is one of IndyCar's long-standing traditions. This 1.968-mile, 11-turn street circuit has been open for the IndyCar drivers since 1975, and it has a ton of personality. Bumps, kinks, you name it, everywhere there is a different challenge, including that hairpin at the final corner, turn 11, that leads you to that long and fast front straightaway. We had this race as the opener for the qualifying series. Luke McEwen was able to step on the top of the podium, but Long Beach is always characteristic in its unpredictability, Arjuna, so keep in mind, turn 1, a danger spot. Everywhere is a possible opportunity to get yourself in the wall. The margin of error, very, very small.
And so let's quickly touch on what we saw last week. Yes, it was Eduardo Leo grabbing the win, but a lot of the strength shown by Team Redline was something that teams knew they had to respond with. And pressure's on in qualifying, Kenneth, let's be honest. It's a one-lap shootout. Only one lap to get the job done, and so rise to the top or drop to the bottom.
And you know, with some drivers that are looking at that Indianapolis Grand Prix race and they're thinking, I need to get that upper hand. And for a track like Long Beach, a street circuit where it's so unique in its characteristics, it's not a typical road course. So all of the drivers who were dominant last week may not show that strength and dominance this time around. Again, it gives that opportunity for those who struggled a bit in round 1 to find their footing in round 2, give themselves a proper start to this IndyCar championship.
Well, let's dial up the 5-6-2 and take a look at the starting grid for round 2 of the INDYCAR ButtKicker iRacing Pro Series. And look at who's on top. It's Cooper Webster. He's balancing his responsibilities, real-world racing, and here in the sim, pole position for him. And his Team Redline teammate Florian Labigra alongside. Jordan Caruso lines up behind his former teammate Cooper Webster. Peter Berryman, former world champion, is on the outside of row 2, with Diogo Pinto sharing the world championship load up there in the front 6 alongside Michele Costantini. Coanda really nailing qualifying for the first time this season. Luke McEwen back alongside Sota Muto, who this time sets a qualifying lap with some less work to do after being the biggest mover of round 1. Ricardo Rico, Eduardo Leo round out the top 10. Leo with some work to do from the outside of row number 5. Gustavo Ariel and Sam Coiter, Redline teammates, sharing row number 6 with, again, only 4 thousandths of a second between the two of them. Blink and you find yourself dropping down several rows in this starting formation. You go down to 7th to find Tamas Shimon in the Tamas setup shop number 57. He's got Michael Romanidis alongside. And again, look at these margins through the field. Elliot Veyron, David Toth on row number 8 find themselves with Jaden Munoz and Michael Johnny on the edge of your top 20, and buried in the mid-pack, this is where the danger zone is going to be on the run-up to the fountain for the first time of asking. The king of the bricks missed round 1, but Brandon Treno, the only repeat winner of the broadcast split of the iRacing Indy 500, is on the inside of row 10. Javi Ross for company. Luis Nunez and Phil Kraus are on row 11. Some work to do for some major contenders, including Jose Soria, who did get tangled up in chaos before the start-finish line in the opening round of the season. Jacob Oster rolls alongside him in the Team i5G number 16, and then just a handful more drivers with times on the board. Jussi Katia and Kevin Burrell line up on row 13, and then a sea of drivers who invalidated their lap time, ran themselves into the wall, and are buried at the very tail end of the field. The young Dan Amor, hard charger in the opening stages of round 1. He'll have it all to do alongside of Adam Crane, with Josh Chin, Rob Malechka, row 15. And then down the very tail end of the running order, it's Brendan Lichtenberg, Jeff Drake, and Jason Brophy. 33 cars lined up strong, 40 laps of racing ahead of us, and Kenneth, we've got tire compounds at play once again.
And once more, we will have the talk of strategy. It's only a 40-lap race, so you don't think that it's going to be super complex, but we have a brand new alternate tire instead of the red wall tires that we had at Indianapolis, and we'll see over the course of the road course season of this series. We have new Waiuli tires that are lined with green on the side. You'll have the primary that, of course, we know is faster over the long run. Those Waiuli tires, they could be fast over the short run. The temperature is looking pretty hot right now in Long Beach, California. Arjuna, 115 degrees. So we talk about strategy, think about the weather, how that's going to impact the grip these guys will have naturally, even in that jump to that first corner.
Quick update on strategy. Seems as though inside of the top 10, 8 drivers on the Waiulis, majority of the rest of the field on the primaries. Have to use both. It will be a talking point for the rest of the 40 laps that lie ahead of us. 7 days ago, Eduardo Leo put the field on notice, showed us all the Leo level. But we've now made our way to the streets of Long Beach. Unforgiving, unrelenting, and now who will master it? Cooper Webster puts foot to the floor, green flag out. We're racing once again in the INDYCAR ButtKicker iRacing Pro Series. And it's not the longest run down to turn 1, a good 800 yards or so, and already a challenge from Jordan Caruso. He'll look to the inside to try and surprise Team Redline number 1 and 2. Florian Lebigra goes straight on into the wall. Not quite sure what happened there. But up towards the fountain section. There's the chaos as expected. Drago Racing and Jose Soria go around. Kenneth, it was expected, and it has come.
And they checked up right at the exit of turn 1. Michael Romanidis got a shot from behind, and they went 3 wide into the fountain corner, and that is not what you want to do at all. It takes out multiple drivers in that tiny, tiny corner. So a bunch of drivers end up on that outside barrier. A bunch of them are still getting back going, but that's what we expect out of Long Beach. Pure chaos in the run-up to turn 1. Luckily for all those up front, no problems with Cooper Webster, Jordan Caruso, Berryman, and the likes of them, but there are several of the bigger names that either tried to perform well in Indianapolis or just did not make the race, now out of it, including Brandon Treno.
Remember, no cautions for these drivers, so they just have to get on with the racing at hand. 1 lap completes, the Webster that leads, but Caruso on the charge to try and hunt him down. It does seem as though David Toth, Brandon Treno involved in incidents requiring a tow back to pit lane. We'll see if anyone else slides into pit lane this time. Did note Florian Lebigra did not get much damage. Somehow he's still out there on track, and so Kenneth, let's figure out what happened into turn number 1.
Well, it seemed like a two-parter, right? A proper Hollywood story, if you will. Entering the first corner, you'll see Florian Lebigra, that red and blue Honda, going straight almost into those barriers there at the entry of turn 1. Just overcooked the brakes, car could not handle it, locked up the tires, and that's where he went. Luckily for Lebigra, he picked up no damage on that other than some flat spotted tires, so he'll be able to continue. But you know, you look at that 400 marker as the way to break entering turn 1. Lebigra tried to cook it on entry to gain some more position. Unfruitful there in his attempt for the pass.
He tried to cook. Unfortunately, he was cooked. Once more out of the hairpin. It's going to be a full second that Cooper Webster builds his advantage. And look at how a couple of those drivers light up in green onto the push to pass, which you've got to manage 200 seconds across 40 laps. Sounds like a lot when you're pushing in a race like this, especially when the fuel margin, you don't need a full tank of fuel at the pit stop. You have some room to play. You can be a bit aggressive with how much of that fuel tank you want to use. Seems as though we got a bit of a breakaway building, though, with 6 drivers on the Waiulis breaking up at the front of the field, breaking clear, I should say, at the front of the field. Then Sotomuto, Eduardo Leo, 7th and 8th positions, Kenneth. First drivers on the primaries trying to do something as we take a look at all the chaos that unfolded on lap 1 into the fountain.
You know, it's a picturesque view in turn 2, that fountain corner on Aquarium Way, but it didn't look pretty at the entry of the corner. Michael Romanidis, that Team INDYCAR in the middle, suffers from the checkup that occurs in front. It goes several rows back, then he's 3 wide with the likes of Brandon Trano, and appeared it was David Toth that might have been also involved in that. So they all stack up into the barriers. Many others just getting damage off of that, even if it didn't include getting into the barriers and going around. Ricardo Rico, who is just putting around in 9th place, is holding up a sea of race cars down Shoreline Drive, and he's got wing damage on the front end of his machine. So he's got to be real careful over these next 40 or so laps. Give it 36 now with the way we've gone if he wants to keep on going.
So remember that is going to cost him about 5 seconds in pit lane to change the front wing. iRacing's damage model able to simulate the impact of just losing the right part of the front wing. At some point he will try to come in, maybe as early as lap 15. That's when the fuel window would open. As you take a look at that ButtKicker race analysis, 40 laps of racing, really not much time for these drivers to try and get stuff sorted. Gustavo Ariel, he's the one frustrated right now, but what can he do? The car in front's on the Waiulis, has got a bit more grip. He's on the primaries, sat behind, and so it's this exit of turn 8 where you can cut inside before you stretch your legs down onto 680 yards of asphalt onto the push to pass for both of them. Gustavo Ariel forced to the wall, not taking no for an answer, and rips 9th position away from Ricardo Rico.
And it's one of about 3 places, Arjuna, you can make a pass here at Long Beach, because at the Indianapolis road course last week, you had plenty opportunity to make moves, a lot more space, and a lot more speed. But because this track is a little shorter and there are walls surrounding you on each side, you have to be pinpoint accurate in where you place your race car, especially when you're weaving through traffic. So it's been tough for everyone behind Ricardo Rico to make a move. Ariel strikes first, but we know that Veyron, Kuitert, Tomas Simon, maybe a bit of Dan Amor in that 41 machine back in 14th, they're going to have that tough route, and it may just leave them with that opportunity that'll leave them, you know, going backwards towards those guys in the front. As you look on board with Kuitert way sideways off of turn 5. That's a corner that you've got to be really careful about, Arjuna, with the underbody of the race car. When you attack those curbs, it could also whip you sideways just like that.
That was something you and I were talking about before we went on air. We were saying, how much curb can your setup handle at turn 5? That's the limit of how much you can cut the corner effectively. Oh, Sam Kuitert not even showing much of a reaction there, but I tell you what, you can guarantee that his tires might be feeling a bit of the pain if he's sliding the car around just a bit too much. So just a reminder, 6-car breakaway at the front. Luke McEwen, the only driver somewhat saving his push to pass right now. I say 6-car breakaway. Peter Berryman, he's 1.5 seconds off the back of the top 2. And Jordan Caruso's really starting to lose ground to Cooper Webster in the team red line number 37. Front of the field, led every single lap so far.
Yeah, Webster is really fast at this moment in time. It's about almost 2 seconds between those two as we watch that battle for third continue to heat up, with Peter Berryman sort of letting traffic stay behind him. We know that Berryman was on that alternate strategy last week at Indianapolis. It didn't work out to his favor. He ended up finishing just inside the top 10. We know that he really does want a better run on those Waiulis to start. Hopefully the primaries later on could get him a good run. A look on board with both Berryman and Pinto, 2 of those guys who did come away with the top 10 finish at the Brickyard. I'd say they're doing well for themselves right now, but the mindset early on, Arjuna, is just keep this car clean. You can make passes when it's available, but you don't need to push the issue, especially here of all places where one mistake can cost you the entire race, literally going into a wall or a barrier. So either of these guys just treading the waters lightly, keeping themselves calm.
And think about this, right? 2 former world champions on display. Berryman, of course, the winner of the 2021 Force Dynamics Dallara iRacing Grand Prix Series. Pinto, the Porsche Esports Super Cup champion in 2022, just a year later. So fascinating to see them in this IndyCar and now challenging themselves. Berryman a bit more with that, you know, open wheel pedigree, you'd say, but Pinto definitely no slouch. We've seen him in prototypes in various iRacing special events really show himself strongly for Team Redline. Let's focus in, though, hard of the pack. Now checked up, still behind Ricardo Rico, who has dropped to 12th position. It's Tomas Simon that's trying to make his charge as we look off the back of the Drago Racing number 51.
You know, at some point for Ricardo Rico, he's going to have to come down pit road. I'm assuming that he's just laying it out until the very end of this run so that he can just come in and make use of it. But that wing damage is really affecting him. Look how slow he is off of turn 8, heading to the hard braking zone of turn 9. He'll lose 1 and 2 positions. Dan Amor, another car with wing damage, is going to go on the inside through turns 10 and 11. So Rico is really losing a ton of time, almost got into the back wing of Amor there on the exit of turn 11, but he is just bleeding off position and is just clinging on to whatever is left. But the traffic is building behind, and their patience will thin out over the course of this race.
And so here comes Michael Johnny, jigs one way then the other because he's been blocked off on the run down to turn 1 by Jaden Munoz. Wheel to wheel at the end of East Shoreline Drive. Johnny squeezed to the wall, he keeps his foot to the floor, but Munoz gets a little bit of contact as they squeeze their way through the fountain section. Great respect shown on both sides, no move made whatsoever. Florian Lebigra on his fight back from second into turn 1, dropping to the tail end into turn 2. I mean, he's used already almost 90 seconds of his push to path. Kenneth, there are some of these drivers in the mid-pack really trying to push hard, some having better luck than others. Dan Amor, remember, 16 positions gained for him so far.
And you look at some guys that really want a good run in this second race. Michael Janney, we didn't talk much about him because he was involved in that first incident before lap 1 as Lebigra dives on the inside, entry of turn 9, and through turn 10, Lebigra has that spot, give him P16. Here at lap number 9 of 40 as they stack up in that hairpin turn 11, but Janney finished in 31st because of that crash. Could not execute his plan at Indianapolis. Xavi Ros did a little better, but not by much, in 23rd place last week at Indy. So a ton of these guys are using what they can and pushing as hard as possible because they know the hard work will pay off later, and they can grab those much-needed points after a faulty Indianapolis first round.
And if you're loving this action, wondering how you can learn more about the series, drivers, or the schedule, remember, still 8 races left to go after this. Log on to iRacing.com/INDYCAR-esports to learn just a little bit more. And of course, if you want to learn more about iRacing, iRacing.com, the place to go. This sort of racing happens on a daily basis. Always love watching the iRacing INDYCAR Fixed Championship. Don't need a setup, just jump in and race. Around the outside, I tell you what, that's a bold move, but Florian Lebigra's had no shortage of bold moves so far, making good use of his Waiulis up to 15th position, but he still lost 13 from where he started this race.
You know, I'd say that turn 8 for me is the scariest corner at Long Beach because that barrier on the left side comes up so quick. If you even misjudge the arc into that corner during the braking while you're turning at the same time, you can easily find yourself in that barrier with a wheel or the entire race car. So it is a bold move by Lebigra, but again, shows to his talent and shows to his skill to be able to weed through the traffic in the situation that he's in. You won't often see a driver make a mistake so early on and bounce back as quickly as Lebigra has. It can mentally affect you as you get a little frustrated behind the wheel. Lebigra, though, doing a step-up job to enter the top 15, and that could be good news when we talk strategy later in this race.
And he is a driver that's got double duty to play. So today, focusing on his INDYCAR ButtKicker iRacing Pro Series campaign. Saturday's trying to regain his spot in the Porsche Esports Super Cup for 2025. So it's a bit of double jeopardy for him to play as we get ready to come to the end of lap number 10. Cooper Webster, we haven't seen him much for good reason. He's well and truly clear at the front of the field. It's his teammates that are trying to put the pressure onto a couple of the other drivers, though. Coiter out of the hairpin, Elliot Veyron in front of him going defensive instantly, and again, green on the left indicates they're on the push to pass. Sam Coiter's backed out of it. He's got the draft of the car in front of him. Can he use that to slingshot himself down into turn 1, braking from around 170 miles an hour? Answer is no. Bounce over the curb. Veyron holds on.
And being patient here in this first corner, you really got to do that. If you're going to be like Lebigra, make an outside pass, I mean, you're going to be bold, but, you know, just hanging back for now. Coiter can see what Veyron is doing. It's a one-on-one, mano-a-mano, if you will, because Ariel and company, 9th on forward, they have pulled away. So, and for Coiter and Veyron, it's focusing more on their own race, but this track is so physical, and the push to pass, you have to use it at every which portion that you can. So Veyron doing a fantastic defensive job here. He was one of those drivers that also finished beneath the top 30 after troubles at Indianapolis last week. So you'd imagine that one of those guys from that Coanda Esports group is going to look to rebound and do it against the driver who finished on the podium last week.
And they've definitely nailed it in qualifying, have Coanda. It's a definite step up. Do they have something in the bank for strategy that could see them make up some headway as well? Sam Coiter back across the line, not going to try the push to pass this time. Conceded for the time being, will attack once more. Kenneth, I've got a stat for you which I'm hoping will blow your mind. So Long Beach, it's the shortest track of the season, 1.9 miles. It's got the longest straight of the season as well. I mean, shortest track being shortest road course. Longest straight of the season at 1.1 kilometers. Crazy when you think about it. We've got some tight and twisty road courses coming up.
Yeah, we do, and a lot of those have their own little characteristics. I'm always surprised to hear that Long Beach has a super long straightaway, because you look at all the other road courses and you think, well, some other track has to have a longer straightaway, right? But that curved straightaway at the exit of turn 11 to turn 1, it's really long, but you don't spend a lot of time there because you're going so fast. But that's what makes Long Beach so special, and I think that's why it's hung around the IndyCar calendar for so many years. It's a cult classic for many American open wheel racing fans, and for all that, right, it's such a tough track to drive, even in the multiple layups that we've seen this track have over the years in IndyCar racing. Just makes it so special to run at Long Beach whenever you can. Honestly, one of my favorite road courses too.
Modern layout being around since 2000 or so going on 24 years with this configuration. We talked tires, Waiulis, and primaries. Well, what are we talking about? Two different compounds, one slightly slower but more durable, one slightly faster but wears a little bit quicker. Waiuli's a street circuit specific compound that's at play, made of Waiuli, a source of natural rubber. It's sustainable, a farmland desert shrub found in the American Southwest, and something that is featured across of all street circuits, I should say, that the NTT IndyCar Series visits on its calendar. Love seeing the innovation that Firestone brings. But again, just a reminder, we're not pushing these tires to the limit, Kenneth, for today's race. 40-lap race, fuel tank can take you 25. Plenty of room to play in the strategy if you're feeling bold.
Yeah, but a lot of drivers are going to be looking at this one as an easy strategy if they're just taking it by the status quo, right? Just go half and half at halfway home. About 6 laps time, you'll come in pit road, you'll change that set of tires, and you'll be on your way. Maybe for those who started on the primaries, they'll look to those alternates a little later on to squeeze out the sweet spot that we talked about last week in Indianapolis. But with that Waiuli rubber that IndyCar implemented last year, no, it's a big challenge, Arjuna, when you talk about motorsports trying to be sustainable and trying to be more economically minded. IndyCar has done a wonderful job of that over the last several years. They introduced hybrid recently to get more, miles per gallon, if you will, and be a little more sustainable when it comes down to their emissions on the race cars. And with the tires, right, if you're able to reuse that and use the Waiulis to your advantage, it's really awesome to see what the tire has done and how cool it works on street circuits, which we all know, Arjuna, is the worst surface to race on because they're so full of personality, so full of little jutters and little things you got to keep an eye out for. It really wears out the tire. So Waiuli's big thumbs up there, and we're watching it represented in sim as this battle between Costantini and McEwen goes down to the wire.
Personality. I love how you described that. Bumpy is how I was going to describe it as we cross the line once again onto the 15th lap of this race. So we are about that point where the fuel window opens as McEwen jump out of line. Remember, he won the qualifying series race here that opened up the championship that saw the fastest and best scoring 33 drivers make their way into the battle for $50,000. One thing both these drivers are dealing with, not just the tense nature of sim racing that makes drivers do weird things with their mouths and their tongues. Other thing though, Kenneth, is the fact both of these drivers racing from Europe, Costantini in Italy, McEwen over in the UK. Does not seem as though McEwen is racing from the Apex Racing Team headquarters in Corby though, just a point there. But it means it's going on 2, 3, 4 in the morning for some of these drivers. They've got to stay up, disrupt their schedule, and still be ready to perform.
It's sort of like the graveyard shift, right? You wake up at like 1, 2 in the morning and you're like, all right, I got to lock in. It's race day. Technically, it's the early morning. I'm not sure if any of them have any sort of breakfast right after they have this race or not, or whether they eat something before they take to the sim rigs and start logging in laps through practice and through this race session tonight. But it is really interesting to see the way the timing works, and these guys have to be mentally prepared for every little situation, especially here at Long Beach, where it does matter a lot, or else you're going to take out your own race car and may take another driver with you. So yeah, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, probably not the best times for these guys, but they're working hard, and as we're seeing with Costantini and McEwen, they're putting on a whale of a battle for 5th place. Just wants to know who strikes first, or who strikes first on the strategy if we're talking that.
And if you're wondering what the left side of the screen, the tower lighting up in green means, that's the drivers on the button getting pushed to pass. 50 or 60 horsepower added to the engine output. Also, obviously, uses a little bit more fuel as well, and the drivers have it at their discretion when to push it, when to toggle it off. I was saying Florian Lebiger at one point had used 90 seconds. We're not even halfway through, 200 seconds allocated. He's used 130 seconds with 25 laps rather left to go.
Yeah, that's all because of that comeback, right, that he's trying to employ after missing the entry of a turn one. But here at Long Beach, you do have the longest straightaway on the road course category of things, but it is a short course where you don't really use that push to pass all the time. Indianapolis, you'd use it way more in comparison. So these guys are just fiddling with that push to pass button a little more because they understand it, number one, but number two, there aren't many places to go full out and use that push to pass. So they're going to do it if it wastes them, you know, their 50, 60 extra horsepower. We'll see, but Lebiger goes for a huge lunge and one, and it costs him a right front tire. He'll cut it right as he entered the barrier. It seems like it's come back, seemingly, but it was a big dive by Lebiger for 11th place. Kreitert saw that coming, but Lebiger almost paid the price going there in turn one.
That's the level of commitments that a driver has got. Maybe going a bit too overboard, and you know, you made a mistake at turn one on the very opening lap of the race. You're trying to atone for it. You can't afford slip-ups like that. Lebiger putting himself at a bit of a disadvantage already for the second time today. Now, again, we're into the pit stop window, so if anyone wants to come down to pit lane, they can. And so remember Ricardo Rico feeling the pain in the early stages. He's already boxed 3 laps ago, 13.4 seconds. Remember, it's an 8-second or so pit stop if you don't need to change a front wing. Kenneth, the delta from going cone to cone is about 40 seconds. So right now, there's some strategists eyeing up a bit of a gap for your race leader, Cooper Webster, to drop himself into some clean air.
Yeah, it's all about where you position yourself here at Long Beach. The last thing you want to do, Arjuna, is log yourself in traffic when you come out of pit road on the fresher tires, because we know how tough it is to pass. You don't have plenty of opportunities to do that. So when you add the fact that you've got fresher rubber and there's a lot of drivers in front of you, it just makes the journey much harder, and you could be a little more prone to making mistakes and or dumping your race car. So it's all a balance there, and I'm sure that Cooper Webster, with the gap he has now, could come out of pit road and still not be harmed as much. We'll look further back to Joshua Chin, driver of the number 93, one of the American drivers in this INDYCAR ButtKicker iRacing Pro Series from Orlando, my state, Florida, as Chin runs in 22nd, catching up to Belechka. I'd say this is fun, Arjuna, because you've got several drivers that go up to Jaden Munoz in 17th, all of them single file, all of them within at least a second and a half.
This is exactly what Josh Chin wants. He's known for being a good fuel saver, very light on the right foot, and so maybe just cooking up a bit of a strategy here. Of course, being in Florida, he's one of the drivers that's been keeping an eye on Hurricane Helen, and so our thoughts go out to anyone that has been impacted and might be impacted. Hope you're staying safe. That includes some of these drivers in the race. UC Katiu was saying that he's not quite sure what's going to happen, and he might, if he leaves the race, we might know why. Anyway, back up towards the leader of the train. There's a bit of damage on the front end of Jaden Munoz's Williams Esports number 24. Interesting that he's decided not to come in. Means that Kenneth, he doesn't think that the Waiulis are capable of taking him for 21 laps. He's trying to extend this race to at least the halfway point.
Yeah, 21 laps is way too much on the alternate tires, even on other road courses across the schedule. We were talking about it in Indianapolis, right? If you go a little over 10 laps, those things start to fall off and the grip levels start to wane down a ton. So you really got to be careful there, and he's just hoping that it all goes down in his favor. There's Jordan Caruso, who ends up pitting from second place, Arjuna. So it's our first driver inside the top 5 that flinches first, and that's exactly what I was talking about, the status quo strategy of pitting halfway home.
And so have they found a window? Has Pash Gergis, probably engineering from Kawanda headquarters, has he found something to drop them in? It means Berryman and Pinto now have to push a little bit more, dropped into second, as off the hairpin. These drivers, anyone peeling off driver's right-hand side? No. They're the ones that Caruso's going to be concerned about, though. So as they come across the timing line, finish another lap, Caruso's already off into turn 1. Kawanda played this perfectly onto the primary compound of tire. Remember, 40-lap races, we take a look at the ButtKicker race analysis. Pedal to the metal, go, go, go if you're Jordan Caruso.
Caruso is going to be pushing here from 16th place, and Long Beach has one of the more difficult pit road re-entries to the racing surface on the schedule, you have to stay right tucked on that blue line, and it's at the real entry of turn 1 where you have to arc the car in. As here comes another car down pit road. This is Michele Costantini, used up a ton of his push to pass over this race. He has a little under 95 seconds left. Eduardo Leo, last week's winner, is also in, but you know, it's very tough to come back into turn 1 when the traffic is arcing out, trying to get as much throttle as possible into Aquarium Way and turn 2. Caruso played that perfectly to get him into clean track and make sure that he can gain these positions as the rest of the field comes in.
And so as we take a look back across the line for first cars who have come down pit lane, where does Costantini and Leo feed out in comparison? Up to speed, by the way, does mean that you're going to blast past those cars who are exiting pit lane on the right. They've got to stay to the right side of the track until they get to the corner effectively. Might keep an eye on the pit merge, the pit exit merge is a bit of a danger point. That's not what Kawando wanted for Costantini. Drops into line behind Munoz. He's got some work to do. Here comes the race leader though. Cooper Webster rolls his way to the pit box.
And that means someone else is going to take the alternate strategy. That's somebody else, Peter Berryman, just like he did last week at Indianapolis. He'll stay out another lap. Luke McEwen, who won the qualifying series race here several months ago, he's in this time by, so a ton of guys at the latter portion of that top 5 are coming in. But reminder, everyone else is going to start to feather their way in onto pit road, and like Costantini, may face some traffic along the way. Eduardo Leo really has to work hard though, because Costantini came out behind one car that had a damaged wing, so he could get by him in turn 8 and turn 9 without a problem. But on the other hand of the spectrum, Eduardo Leo is trapped in 17th, 3 cars ahead. It's really tough for him right now.
And that's why I think Berryman, Pinto, they're staying out there. They're still punching in quick lap times. 107, 125 for Berryman, last time 5. Caruso, who's got clean air until now when he's caught up to the back of Luis Nunez, 106.9 last time at the line. So Berryman, you can see being, or rather that's his teammate with the green wheels, I do believe. So Luke McEwen already having made his trip down pit lane. Berryman staying out there, I think, doing kind of what they wanted to do at this point of the race. Also noting push to pass numbers, as you see on the left side, when the drivers have come down pit lane. We are starting to see some drivers be a bit more aggressive with it, Kenneth, now that we've got to this back half of the race.
And it's going to be tough a little here, Arjuna, just because some of those that are transferring now from the primaries to the Waiuli tires, the alternates, they're going to have very little push to pass left to go. Many guys are already under 100. Some of them are already under about 80. So it is going to get really close on what they have left for the boost, especially down these straightaways. That can mean a ton as Tomas Simon comes down pit road, and finally Costantini gets by Nunez in that hard attempted through turn 1.
Oh.
That was Caruso rather, but he's got damage on the front wing.
No, so where's that come from? He's already pitted. Oh, this is going to be frustration, and this for Cooper Webster, who's already 5 seconds clear, is great. If I'm Berryman, if I'm Berryman's engineer, I'm in his ear. I'm telling him pit now, and here he comes, followed in by Pinto. 17 to go at the line. Kenneth, we've got a race on, but not for the lead. Webster might be good. Battle for second is truly on.
That is dramatic there for Caruso, and it was hitting Nunez's back wing at the entry of turn 11. They stacked up, and that's where the wing went out and away. So for Caruso, you have to ask how much aerodynamic deficiencies is he's going to have now for the rest of this race, with still a ton of it left to go. Nunez is still keeping pace with that clean race car. Caruso does not come down pit road, so he will stay out an extra lap. Does Caruso flinch soon or later? It's going to get very close as Berryman and Pinto are in. They're starting to come out now. Berryman now entering turn 1.
Not a surprise. He's lost so much time getting stacked up behind Nunez, and now with the damage. Whoa! Ball contact! Pinto sent into the tire bundles. Former Porsche Esports Super Cup champions tangle at turn 1. Pinto might have got away with it, but what can Caruso do to hold on to what would be third position? Still waiting for Sotomuto potentially to come down to pit lane, insert himself into the battle. This is why Long Beach is great. Strategies can be mixed up. Let it all brew, let it all bubble, and now a battle royale to the end.
And Caruso is in deep waters here, Arjuna. He only has 43 seconds left of his push to pass available. Pinto, on the other hand, on it now at 116 seconds, entering turn 9. So it's going to be inevitable at some point that Pinto and McEwen are going to be able to get around Caruso, who is limping around. They're going to stack up in turn 10. McEwen goes the highway, attempts the crossover in turn 11, but it's all to turn 1. Does Pinto try again on the Quanda Esports machine up front?
He's not got a great run off the corner, has he? So that's not going to be this time into the left-hander at the end of Shoreline Drive. But I tell you what, Pinto's got a bit more push to pass in the bank. What can he do with that to now break it out and really let loose? So Sota Muto at the front of the field. Jaden Munoz, Josh Chin, and Brendan Lichtenberg. They're the 4 drivers yet to come down to pit lane. Lichtenberg slides his Team i5G number 10 into the box this time by. So get a sense for where they'll stack up in the mix. But here comes the look, the move to the inside. Pinto first, slides his way at the end of turn 6 to slide his way forward. McEwen's going to set this one up to get the crossover. Onto EC sideway, Kenneth power down, and here comes the push to pass.
And there's not much that the Australian can do for defense here in turn 9. Pinto couldn't get Caruso in this part of the track, but McEwen definitely can. Check mark for the Apex car. He'll slide into the top 5, and it's now a war between Pinto and McEwen for that P4 spot. Caruso may bleed another one from his teammate Michele Costantini, and it may be a debate about should I let my teammate by or do I hang on and just let it happen whenever it does. I'm curious to see if Caruso ends up coming down pit road at some point as the leader. Sota Muto ends up coming in, giving the lead back to Cooper Webster, and here comes Costantini, turn 1.
Surely if you are Caruso, you stay out there. It's not worth the 40 seconds to change that wing, because you'll drop basically to the edge of the top 20, so he's going to feel the pain. Costantini, don't expect much fight there as he makes his way past Caruso. Now he's got to try and close back up to Luke McEwen. So, as we now cycle our way through the pit stop sequence, Cooper Webster 5 seconds clear at the front of the field, and so with 14 to go when you cross the line this time by, I tell you what, if he stays out of trouble, might not see much more of him until the checkered flag flies.
And the good news for Webster is that he started on the Waiuli alternate tire, so he goes on the primaries now. That lasts you the rest of the race without issue. And the good news for him too, he still has a ton of push to pass available. He's using it every now or then, but he's still got 119 seconds, the most out of anyone in this current top 5. So Webster is just on the Sunday drive down Shoreline Drive and doing what he can to grab his first win of the season. How about Philip Kraus, who is holding off a ton of drivers behind him? Michael Janney, Florian Labigra, while also in the sandwich with guys in front, Elliot Veyron and Simon Quaitert in turn 11. They'll get close there, but Quaitert bleeds one spot off. Veyron slides in the top 10.
Find out who's the big shot into turn 1 this time by. One thing to keep in mind is that both Veyron and Quaitert had long pit stops to change their front wings, so they drop back into this mixed mess, however you want to describe it. Phil Kraus is just thinking, I'm glad I got to the line this time by. Remember, he got tangled up in the start drama before we even got to the yard of bricks to open up this season 7 days ago. The 14 machine, Sam Quaitert. Remember, we saw the big slide for him through turn 5, a little bit more controlled this time around as they go underneath that roller coaster. One thing that I love about Long Beach is it really does seem like a festival, a bit of a party. You've got, of course, there's the drifting events that happen here, not, of course, the race weekend where we see Indy cars, but always cool seeing that. You've got the roller coaster, the aquarium of the Pacific, all those different restaurants that iRacing's done a great job of modeling, Kenneth, and making me hungry as we close on 6 p.m. here on the west coast of the U.S.
Yeah, it's an outlet shopping center. You know, we've got some great restaurants there too, and just the picturesque views, right, of the shore, of the water and everything that's there. You also got, you know, the Queen Mary that is modeled there in iRacing. You can go see the Queen Mary in sim if you're not able to go on the west coast and see it in real life. Just a reminder though about what's at stake for these guys. Remember, some have gotten that foot forward in the championship. Many guys who were tallying through the mid-pack are just recovering now in race 2, but it's all for the dollar bills, y'all. Arjuna, $20,000 for that champion.
Wonder how much fried chicken or pizza that buys you. $20,000. Oh. Someone's done the math. Alex Pillow's probably done it as well. Ooh, big slide once again through 5. Kraus is going to hold on this time. Johnny's going to switch back to show himself, force himself to commit to the break. And well, I tell you what, Phil Kraus does a good job of holding on to the position. With 12 to go, these drivers recognize they've got to start making their moves, got to start being more aggressive. And guess what Florian Lebigra is thinking? Please, give me some freebies. I've had to work hard to get back up to 13th spot.
And he's yet to see the top 10 apart from some of the strategy that he played earlier on in the race. The French guy is thinking, hold on, wait, I don't want y'all to make contact here, and I don't want to make contact with you guys either. Let's stay in our lanes. Let's get a good, clean race to the end of this one. But you're right, with all of the dwindling time, it'll be 10 laps to go very soon, and with every passing lap, those tires aren't going to get much better, especially for Jani, Kraus, Kuiter, all of them now on the Waiuli tires that will start to fade away in several laps time. So keep in mind, they'll start to tiptoe around the speedway and the racetrack as, wow, Lebigra got close to the back wing of Jani there in turn 2.
Love this camera angle, really does show the tight confines of this Dallara IR-18 and how much like a jet fighter it really does seem. Now, on board with Lebigra, you're seeing the defense and the contact. Bit of front wing goes flying. Kraus gets shoved wide. Johnny says, I'm not going to wait any longer. Oh, and now as they rumble their way onto East Seaside Way, 680 yards before they get onto the brakes once more, Florian Lebigra using what little push to pass he still has to try and demote Phil Kraus yet another spot. The private label Team Hype Machine can do nothing but watch the red line car slide its way forward.
Textbook pass there from Lebigra, and he's got the upper hand on Jani, who becomes another Coanda Esports machine to suffer some wing damage. While Caruso did it a little ago, Michael Jani now the next victim there of the Long Beach walls and the barriers or other cars. Lebigra can't get the run in the first corner, but it's all going to be about the patience here. It's going to be harder to catch up to the red line teammate of Sam Kuiter in the next several laps. So click off Jani here, and it should be good enough. But through turns 2 and 3, it's very tough, and Yanni now has to nurse this machine without half of the front wing.
It's difficult as well, given the battles that you are thrust into. So Michael Jani has a look at the Californian. Not far away from the streets of Long Beach, to be fair, of all our drivers, probably the closest of all of them. So probably quite familiar with all of it. He's getting familiar with the walls, hits them once more. I don't think there's much more you could do. Lebigra doesn't even need the push to pass, and he says, thank you very much. I'll grab 11th, one spot away from reinserting himself into the top 10. What a fight back from second to last, back up to 11th. Race is not done, though. Still some work to be done. Oh, that was exciting. I think it's going to start to get a little less exciting for these drivers, Kenneth, now, as they all just settle back into their rhythms.
Well, you start to break a sweat, right? Not even just driving against other guys, but just driving this racetrack. It's so tough to maneuver around this Long Beach circuit with all of that precision and keeping that speed up as well in comparison to the traffic. So you do get a little physical here at this racing venue, but good news for Lebigra, he's got clean track, so he can just focus on the final 10 or so laps in this race. For Lebigra, it'll be a solid point stay after coming home right behind the race winner at Indianapolis. For Jani, even with a bit of that wing damage, Arjuna, I'd argue this is still a decent race. 12th place could give you some solid points, especially after finishing beneath the top 30 last week. Jani will bring this one home, even if it's a little bruised and battered, but with more points than he would if something else went down. So for Jani, it's still good news, even if he's on the outskirts of this top 10.
Well, the streets of the international city have sung the sounds of race cars since 1975. Let's turn up those sounds. Let's go. iRacing full throttle. Well, one driver's limping their way back to pit lane, Michele Costantini. I'm not quite sure what that is. It's not a clean Dallara IR18 by any means, and oh, pain, unfortunately, so close to the end of the race. Welcome back to round 2 of the INDYCAR ButtKicker iRacing Pro Series Arjuna Kankipani. Kenneth Bueno. Kenneth, closing stages, pain for Costantini.
Big time drama in turn 9. That is where Gustavo Ariel and Costantini made a bit of contact. It damaged both cars. Ariel still hangs on to 5th and barely avoided those tire barriers, but we'll look at it. We've seen turn 9 Arjuna as one of the better places to make a pass. It's a hard braking zone, and you've got a good straightaway right before it, so you can make a move. But Costantini wasn't going to give this one away easily. He flirts down low. There is Ariel trying to peek underneath. Costantini shuts the door and continues the block until the braking zone. That's when the two make contact, and Costantini goes straight into those tire barriers.
Now, I think we can all probably agree that it's the responsibility of the car to pass safely, so Gustavo Ariel's probably the one that race control is going to take a closer eye on. But when I'm thinking about, I know it's the closing stage of the race, but there's a saying, isn't there? Play silly games, win silly prizes, and I think that's exactly, unfortunately, what's happened to Costantini as he gets shoved into the wall a bit too stern with his defense. Dan Amor's got the front wing repaired. He's now defending from Tamas Shimon as they wind their way onto the power once again. Dan Amor with 28 seconds of push to pass left. Tamas Shimon with 30, so they're very, very closely matched here into these closing laps of the race, and with clean cars on both sides, two drivers not willing to stand down.
And Amor just finished outside the top 15 at Indianapolis last week. This one certainly a pickup, even if it is a little small of a progression for Tamas Shimon, just outside of the top 10 last week. And that was great performances by those guys who, you know, are on technically their own teams. Obviously for Amor, he's part of that Apex Racing Academy, so he has a bit more support from the Apex Racing catalog. But for the likes of Tamas Shimon, who's running his own setup shop, his own team for this edition of the INDYCAR iRacing ButtKicker Pro Series, it's been really awesome to see what these two have been able to do. Look at the onboard look in the two different rigs, Arjuna. How about the VR from Tamas Shimon? I'd say it's a little beautiful when you're running around Long Beach, no?
Quite a few drivers actually in this iRacing INDYCAR community are VR enthusiasts, including Adam Blocker, who unfortunately isn't in the series, but he's gone from being one of the top iRacing INDYCAR drivers. He now works with Hunkos Hollinger Racing. He's a race engineer on the 78, so shout out to him, one of those drivers that tries to advocate for VR as much as I say it's too hot and too sweaty for someone to drive an INDYCAR in. Dan Amor, by the way, random shout out. We mentioned spotters slightly earlier on. He's got a pretty big spotter in his corner. Alex Dunn, of course, who's won both of the rounds that we've had so far of the FIA F4 Esports Global Championship. Also, of course, races in the real world. He's there helping out the Apex Racing Academy driver. He'll be racing this Saturday on the iRacing Esports Network. There is so much action, Kenneth, no matter where you are, what sort of racing that you're looking for. So building as well to our eNASCAR finale in just a handful of days' time.
That will be exciting, and what makes that eNASCAR Coke Series finale so fun is that it's in real life. It'll be at the NASCAR Hall of Fame in Charlotte, North Carolina, so all the championship drivers will be in their own sim rigs. Dale Jr. will be there, who's been such a big addition to the iRacing team, and he's done so much for the sim over the last several years. So iRacing has made it super exciting to be in any sort of discipline. Look how close it's getting between Simone and Amor, though. That battle for 14 starting to heat up. We'll look a little bit further back. That's 5th place Gustavo Ariel. Now he may be under fire. Sotamuto, who was our biggest mover, Arjuna, last week at Indianapolis after starting at the very back of the field. Now with a solid top 10 for Williams Esports, and he's hunting for more.
And that's a bit of a statement, right? He showed that when qualifying didn't go his way, he could bounce back, he could respond. And now that he's qualified quite well, he's been able to, you know, maintain position on the start, stay out of the trouble, and he's got 40 additional seconds of push to pass over Gustavo Ariel. So you've got to assume onto the power once again. Let's see what's going to happen. Just a reminder, the bright yellow machine, Grello, Jason Brophy insists it's Grello, lap down. He's staying out of trouble. He'll be one to watch in a week's time when we go racing for the first time this season, Kenneth, on an oval. And I'm very excited. The fan vote sending us to Milwaukee, which is great in and of itself. It also means 5 ovals, 5 street/road courses, and again, adaptability. I love that our champion will be challenged.
And you also have very different ovals too. They're not going to be the same. Iowa is going to be the shortest track out of all of those, and it is very bumpy. It's another track, much like Long Beach, that is not afraid to show its character. Even though Iowa is a much younger racing track, it is still a ton of fun to drive, regardless of what you put on it, including these DeLauro IR18s. And then that Milwaukee Mile, right? The fan vote winner for the penultimate race of the season. That means, Arjuna, we're ending our campaign on 2 oval tracks, one in Milwaukee, the other in Lebanon, Tennessee with Nashville Superspeedway. So for all of those American drivers who have that prestige on the oval side of things with these open wheel cars, it is going to be awesome for them if they can mount a charge in the last portion of this championship and make it a solid fight.
It's a long time before we go racing at America's legendary oval. Push to pass, though, for both Gustavo Ariel and Sotomuto, trying to block to the inside at the end of this long run to Shoreline Drive, breaking from 170 miles an hour down to, well, just under 100 miles an hour. Able to get through safely with Sotomuto sliding back into line. And again, penultimate round of the season is Milwaukee. Final round of the season will see us strum our way to the Nashville Superspeedway. 2 ovals to finish things off. Traffic stays well out of trouble. I think that's Brendan Lichtenberg running out of laps if you are Sotomuto here to make your move for 5th position, because Cooper Webster's coming back around to the line. 2 laps left to go.
Oh, the last thing you want to do, Arjuna, is do what Ariel and Costantini did earlier in this race, especially here in turn 9, where you can make that contact and easily stuff up your race car. Muto is going to be a little more patient, but he's on those alternate Waiuli tires. So is Ariel, and both of these cars are lacking in grip. I see many controlled slides out of both of them as they're at the top of 1st and 2nd gear. Ariel's playing defensive. There's the push to pass from Muto. He'll get the run down the long straightaway. Ariel does not have more push to pass left. Here comes Muto outside turn 1.
And surely he's going to be able to stick it, but Gustavo Ariel stern on the defense. Lango, not right now. One more time down at the end of Shoreline Drive for Ariel to hold on. Sotomuto has still got 18 seconds of push to pass left. Kenneth, that's going to be something where he's just going to use it all in one go and hope he can fly his way past.
It's already 1 lap to go, right? Just use whatever you have left. All these guys, if they have any push to pass left, they're probably going to regret not using a little bit. It could make the difference between gaining or keeping your position. It will matter a ton at the end of this race. Everyone going through turns 8, 9, 10, 11. There's Luke McEwen, who might be poising a fight to Diogo Pinto. Both of them on the primary tires. Both of them with not that much push to pass left to go. White flag in the air from Long Beach.
And so 1.9 miles left to rumble, and so you have to assume drivers just hoping all they've got to do, keep it within the walls and a finish within sight. For Cooper Webster, 5 seconds clear at the front of the field. And we really haven't talked too much about any of these drivers inside of the top 4 very much, as Ariel and Muto, as expected, going to battle their way all the way to the very end. Kenneth, as we watch Webster sweep his way through the final couple of corners, what do you have to say about this driver? Remember, finished outside of the top 10 a week ago.
You know, this is just like Indianapolis last week with Eduardo Leo. Just straight up dominance, even under strategy, not letting anything phase him. And for Cooper Webster, from qualifying and practice, one of those drivers you had to watch out for, and he'll master the streets here at Long Beach. Wonderful job by the red line driver.
7 days ago, Eduardo Leo showed the world the Leo level. Cooper Webster was the only red line driver outside of the top 10. He bounces back, though. Streets of Long Beach, no match for Webster. In the Team Redline 37, winner of round 2 in the INDYCAR ButtKicker iRacing Pro Series. Peter Berryman will grab a well-earned 2nd spot, ensures the Apex Racing team bounce back in style, and while Gustavo Ariel holds on to 5th, Diogo Pinto grabs 3rd to make it 2 redline machines inside of the top 3. They're banging all the way to the line in the battle between Jason Brophy and Brendan Lichtenberg to not be in 26th position. Brophy edges it out at the line. Every position means something to these drivers, Kenneth.
Wonderful, and they're still going at it till the end. Ricardo Rico with early wing damage, getting it fixed. Him and Michael Janney, this fight for 11th. And no match for Janney, even with his wing damage, and drivers just stuffing it up in turn 11. Tomas Shimon, Luis Nunez soaring goes one of the cars and to the front straightaway. Oh my.
Nexus Esports becomes Nexus Airlines, and that is not on. Oh, Luis Nunez is getting in trouble after this race. I can tell you that one for free. 6 thousandths of a second, though, between him and Dan Amor. No drama for Cooper Webster. I tell you what, saw all of that to finish the race. Cooper Webster's going to be sitting there thinking, Kenneth, oh, I'm glad I wasn't part of any of that.
Well, he's going to look at turn 11 and say, what happened here? Well, what's the mess? Why are there so many parts of cars all over the place? But for Webster, it was a clean and green race, and nothing stood in his way. I mean, Long Beach is a really tough track to drive in general by yourself, and for Webster, just mastered everything. Going to be on the start-finish line, celebrating for the first time this season. What a job by Webster, as Redline goes 2 for 2 in this INDYCAR iRacing ButtKicker Pro Series. Webster burns it down from Long Beach in celebratory fashion.
And he won the second race of the F4 Australian Championship at Sepang a couple of weeks ago, carries that success into the virtual world and wins the second round of this INDYCAR ButtKicker iRacing Pro Series. Berryman second for the Apex Racing team. We'll be thrilled with that to put some much needed points on the board heading into an oval where I think you'll feel he might be a bit of a dark horse. Diogo Pinto in third position, able to keep out of trouble in front of Luke McEwen, with Gustavo Ariel somehow, no push to pass in those final couple of laps, still defends like a lion, holds on in front of Sotomuto, who stays in sixth position. Down in seventh for Jordan Caruso, that front wing damage trying to pass Luis Nunez in traffic really hurt his chances, but he's the best of the Coanda machines in front of Elliot Veyron. Sam Coitert, Florian Lebigra, they bookend the top 20. What a fight back from Lebigra, second to last and back up to the top 10. Michael Johnny 11th, Ricardo Rico 12th, and then Phil Kraus, after not getting to the yard of bricks to open up the season, 13th to finish out round number 2. Javi Ross in the Stealth Black 04 is 14th, with Tara Shimon just behind him in 15th. Luis Nunez, Dan Amor, they're going both to the steward's office after this one, I would say, with Jaden Munoz, Adam Crane, and Josh Chin, the rest of the top 20. And only 2 more drivers scored on the lead lap, UC Katia and Kevin Burrell. They'll be quite glad that Cooper Webster didn't put them 1 lap down, and they stay in front of Rob Malechka, Jacob Oster, and then the battle that we saw to the line. Jason Brophy just fending off Brendan Lichtenberg in a bit of a drag race to the line. Retirements include, and struggles include, I should say, Michael Romanidis and Michele Costantini, while Jose Soria, Eduardo Leo down in 30th, and then Jeff Drake, David Toth, and Brandon Treno. I think we must have missed what happened to Edo Leo. Leo level, unfortunately, not on display for him today. Let's head over, though, to our race winner down in victory lane. It's Kenneth Bueno standing by with Cooper Webster.
Got the palm trees, you've got the beautiful sun, and now, Cooper Webster, you've got a race win here in Long Beach, California. What does it mean to grab the top step of the podium in this one, in the way you did it, especially after Indianapolis last week?
Yeah, I know. I'm super stoked. I'm so happy because, yeah, after Indianapolis, that was just a nightmare for me. I couldn't figure out, where the pace was. I was just slower than all my teammates. So, yeah, that was just a real, doing my head in. So to come here, I just grinded, just worked as hard as I could, and every day try to get the pace back, and the pace was good. And then it was down to putting a lap in qualifying, and I've been struggling lately with that, but this time was really good. And then it was just eyes forward in the race, and it was mine to lose if I stuffed it up. But no, super happy to bring it home.
A very clean race, and with this win, we could argue that you might be the top of the championship standings after this week, heading into the first oval race of the season. How do you prepare for that? How do you try to be versatile and go from a tough street course to a very tough Iowa Speedway?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to be leading the championship, which means gives me the most room to drop down if I have to drop down the ovals, because, yeah, at the moment, I'm not super confident in the qualifying series. I struggled a bit. So yeah, we're just going to have to really figure it out as best we can. But it's going to be difficult, but it is good to finally have a good result on the road course. But from now on, it's oval road. So it's going to be tough. Yeah.
It's going to be the meat of this championship, but you start off on the right foot in round 2. Cooper, on behalf of all of us at the iRacing broadcast team, congratulations on the W. We'll see you in Newton, Iowa next Thursday.
Thank you.
That is Cooper Webster for Team Redline, who takes the win. Peter Berryman joins us now from second place. Peter, very clean race for you overall with that Apex Racing team machine. What did you learn over the course of tonight from Long Beach, and how would you best describe tonight's race?
quite boring, to be honest. I mean, there's not really much went on. Yeah, I was a bit surprised, really. I think Caruso had some sort of wing damage, I'm hearing in my ear, so I got a bit lucky to get in the positions I did, but I sort of expected, I would have been content if I stayed fourth. Qualifying there, I would have been pretty happy. So, yeah, a bit fortunate to gain some spots, but that's the game. Pretty stressful in the car. Difficult conditions with the walls. You just never know when you're gonna meet one. So, yeah, pretty chill overall.
Hey, but sometimes a chill race is a good one, especially at a track that's as hard to drive as this. You head into the first oval race of the season at Iowa next week. But on the road course side of things, what did you learn over the first 2 races, whether it's from the push to pass to these alternate tires and the strategy? What did you learn there that you can use for the rest of the campaign?
Overall, we were on the back foot a bit after the qualifying series to get into the championship. We knew we needed to improve a lot. So I think we're slowly starting to understand the car a bit better. And you can see that with the results that we're slowly starting to get closer to Redline, who seem to be the guys to beat at the minute. And yeah, the push to pass, good addition. I think it's a lot better than the previous one. You can use it a bit more strategically than before. So yeah, first oval coming up, and we've got to make a bit of improvement on the ovals as well.
All right, Peter. Well, it's a second place finish from Long Beach, a really good result. Congratulations on the podium effort, and we'll see you at Iowa next Thursday.
Thanks, guys.
Peter Berryman for Apex Racing in second. Beautiful sim rig for Jogo Pinto, who joins us now after coming inside the top 3. He ends up finishing from Long Beach. Jogo, this race was wild in many cases. For you, it's your second straight top 5 of the season. What does it mean to start off in the first 2 rounds in a great position with your teammates and getting the good result from Long Beach tonight?
Yeah, I was really stressed for this race. It's a street track, so it's always a bit more stressful. But quali was a decent lap. It was clean. I had some pace for more, but from there onwards, you can't really do much on track, just on strategy. I was lucky enough to overtake Jordan, and then at the end, it was just covering Luke. I tried to catch Peter, but he was just a little bit too far ahead. I was really lucky not to get some big damage out of the pit lane, so that was not ideal. But yeah, overall, it was a good start of the season so far.
A lot of drivers come into this series with more of a road course background, some with more of that oval background. You head into Iowa, which will be our first oval race of the season. Is there anything in particular you've learned about Iowa, if you've ever tested it before, and what notes do you take from here until next week's race?
Iowa, we had a VCO INDYCAR event early in the year, a couple of months ago, and it was quite a fun track to drive. I felt like I was pretty competitive. Obviously, we prefer the road courses, but we will do our best to get the maximum amount of points we can at Iowa. And I think it will be a good round. It's a fun oval. So hopefully, I'm counting in for a top 10. I think there will be like a win for me there.
Well, 2 top 5s to start the season. Jogo, on behalf of all of us at the iRacing broadcast team, congratulations on 3rd tonight. We'll see you at Iowa.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cooper Webster, Peter Berryman, Jogo Pinto Arjuna, your top 3 from Long Beach, California.
And so I'm curious, is your math correct? Is Cooper Webster the championship leader? Yes! Oh, trust Kenneth Bueno's math more than you trust mine.
I'm not a math major, but it works.
Hey, I was a comp sci major, and you don't want to trust mine, so keep that in mind. Diogo Pinto, 7 points behind Webster, only 1 point back to Berryman. The one thing that I'm just keeping in mind, though, is how close things are, even inside of the top 10 right now. Because, like you say, Kenneth, a week from now, it's going to be a totally different world that these drivers step into, and so the oval specialist could very well rise to the forefront. First of 5 oval races in a week's time when we make our way on over to Iowa.
Yeah, I'd look at that mid-pack in the championship as one to watch for, because a lot of those guys who are the more specialized in the oval side of things with these open wheel cars, they'll start to shine at Iowa. This track in Newton is really, really awesome to take the car onto. There are a ton of bumps, many grooves of usage, and for a lot of these guys, it means a brand new challenge, which is always great to see how they handle that. So next Thursday, we'll see one of the more pivotal rounds in our championship with Iowa next week.
Can't wait for it. It's about 1,500 miles as the Hawk flies to make our way over to Iowa. It might as well be a totally different world, though, from the streets of Long Beach. What a race here in the 5.62. From pole to victory for Cooper Webster, reminding everyone, yes, he might have missed the top 10 a week ago. He's one to be counted. See you from the ovals next time out. From our team behind the scenes, our junior Kanki Party, Kenneth Bueno, saying thanks for your company. Can't wait for what Iowa's got in store in this INDYCAR ButtKicker iRacing Pro Series.
win, wins Pocono, and wins his way to the playoffs. Bobby Zelensky gonna double down in 2024. He goes back-to-back at the Chicago Street Course.